Hello everyone and welcome to our brief introduction to carers' rights. So this is being presented by myself, Carol Short, and my colleague Rahana Patel, and we're both advocates with Carers Count, and we'll explain what an advocate is a bit later on. So why is the Care Act important? So the Care Act came in 2014, and it helps you to get the right support in place for the person you care for, and it should help you as a carer as well get the right information, advice and support that you need. So this is the first time that carers' rights have been recognised under the law, and it shows that the government did finally realise they needed to put legislation in place to recognise the importance of unpaid carers in society. So the Care Act says that the cared for and the carer should be at the very centre of all the assessment processes. So it's not about making you fit into services that might be available to support you. It's the other way around. It's making sure that services meet your needs and the needs of the cared for. And it says in the legislation that the carer and the cared for should be recognised and acknowledged as the experts on themselves. So however much other people might think they know best, the Care Act says that you should be listened to as the people who know best on yourselves.
The Care Act looks to prevent a carer from getting a breakdown, so stopping problems before they actually start. This might mean investing in preventative services and fully utilising any existing community resources to get the carer any support that they need. It's critical to the vision of the Care Act that the care and support system works to promote the well-being and independence of the carer and doesn't get to a point where you actually do need the care and you're actually in a state where you desperately need the care. So prevention is key. The information and advice under the Care Act should be provided in a format that suits the individual. The service should cover the new rights and entitlements that people have under the Act and how they can access them in the local area. This can include any financial advice as well. Information should be provided in accessible ways, not just on websites or GP services. Individuals, carers have the right to have the information interpreted as well, to meet the needs of the carer so that they can understand what is said to them in the best way possible.
So rights that the Care Act gives carers is, as I said at the beginning, I think for the first time ever, carers have an equal right to support as like the person they care for also has rights. And the way of identifying what support a carer might need is usually in the form of a carer assessment. So a carer assessment is free. Anyone over 18 can ask for one. And the only criteria for getting a carer assessment is if you provide care for someone. So it's a very, very broad eligibility criteria. And it's the way for the local authority to work out whether you qualify for any support under the Care Act in your role as an unpaid carer. And if the assessment does recognise that you've got eligible needs for support, the local authority should produce a support plan explaining how those needs have been met. So a care assessment can take place in however you want it to happen. There is a form to be completed. You can either choose to fill that in yourself and send it off by post. You could complete it with either a social worker or someone from the care navigation team over the phone, or it could be face to face. A lot of people prefer it to be face-to-face because there's quite a lot of information that's asked for, and sometimes it's a lot easier if someone is asking you the questions to get the information they need, rather than you sitting down and trying to write reams and reams.
Once you have the carers assessment and the local authority relies on the new eligibility criteria, basically, the new national eligibility threshold is used to determine whether the carer qualifies for support. So if you as a carer meets this criteria, then you qualify for help from the local authority. And the assessor, whoever's assessing you, will look at these three criterias. Do your needs arise because you, the carer, are providing the care and support? As a carer, is your physical and mental health affected or at risk of deteriorating? And consequently, is there an impact on your well-being? After assessing these criteria, and they decide that you do fit the criteria, the local authority then will create a support plan to see how best they can support you as a carer.
So one of the main principles underlying the Care Act is well-being, and it's a word I haven't particularly thought about until the Care Act came into being. So when the person carrying out the care assessment is assessing whether or not you fit the criteria to have some support needs of your own, they look at your well-being in lots and lots of different areas of your life. So for example, as it says up here, having a sense of personal dignity, having good physical and mental health, that's emotional well-being, because the caring role can have a massive effect on all sorts of aspects of our life. It looks at whether you're living in suitable living accommodation to be able to provide the care that you are providing. Look at things like whether you're able to contribute to society if you want to. Many people may want to go to local mental health forums or carers forums to try and feed back to service providers what their experiences are, but they might not be able to do that because of the caring role. So that would be identified in a carer assessment. Safeguarding is also brought into the Care Act, which is a first. So it is written into the Care Act that both you, the carer, and the cared for have a legal right to be protected from abuse and neglect. It looks at how much you're affected in having control over your day-to-day life. It can be very difficult if you've got carers coming in numerous times a day. You can feel a bit out of control, and that can have a detrimental effect on your well-being. You have a right to be able to work if you want to be able to do training, education, recreational things, volunteering, that sort of thing. So if your role as a carer prevents you from being able to participate in any of those things, again, that can have a detrimental effect on your well-being. Social and economic well-being talks about, if you're really struggling financially because you've had to give up work, you get a carer's allowance and you're struggling to make ends meet. And you also, I'm going to have a drink.
That's fine.
Sorry, everyone, I've had a bad cough and I'm still getting over it. So you also may have other family that you want to be able to see. We've all got a right to a family life, and you may not be able to see other members of your family because you're stuck at home caring for someone. And you're entitled to a social life too. So all those different areas of your life can be affected by your caring role. And hopefully the care assessment will identify any areas which might mean, because you're having a detrimental effect on your well-being in some of these areas, that means you're eligible for some sort of support from the local authority.
And there's no hierarchy in the areas of well-being. All are equally important, so one doesn't take precedence over the other. And the local authority does have a duty to promote the well-being once identified of the individual when carrying out the social care functions.
So if you've had this assessment and could we just go back one, Rahan? And it does result in them recognising you've got eligible needs. That means, as Rahana said earlier, they have to create a support plan to explain how they're going to meet these needs. Now, that might be by utilising voluntary services in the area. Various charities will offer support. So that, for example, Carers Trust will give people some respite through the week from the caring role. But sometimes it might generate a budget to actually help you pay, for example, for maybe if because of your caring role, you don't have time to do your housework. You can sometimes end up getting a budget to pay for a cleaner to help out with that. Similarly, people who get extremely stressed, I've in the past had clients who've generated a budget to use for things like alternative therapies, like aromatherapy and massages that have really, really helped them to maintain their well-being and prevented them from getting to a crisis where they don't feel able to care anymore. Rahana, you're on mute.
Sorry. By person-led assessment, a person-led assessment is an assessment carried out to assess the individual's needs on how much help they need to carry on with their daily activities. This could include anything from personal hygiene, getting themselves cleaned, or accessing any social groups, etc. So if the cared for doesn't need support in doing that, the local authority will come and do a person-led assessment to gain a clear picture of what the assessed needs are. What we do ask is when you are having a person-led assessment done for the cared for, that you are very realistic and not minimise any care needs, and give a full and accurate picture of your day-to-day life of what takes place when you are providing the care, etc. This is so that the local authority has a full picture as to what the what kind of care is required. The person-led assessment should be reviewed on an annual basis as well. Carol, would you like to add anything with regards to the person-led assessment?
Yeah, if, as Rahana said, there should be a review of the care plan every year. They are very overworked at social services, so they do sometimes run behind. But you can ask for a reassessment or a review sooner if the person you're caring for, if their care needs change quite a lot, or if your own health suffers quite a lot. It might need an earlier review so that they can get some more care in place if that's what's needed. And it's also important to make sure that it's really full and accurate, because the needs, the local authority have to meet those needs. So it's really important that all the needs are in there, so we make sure that all needs are met appropriately.
The support plan offers a clear picture of the person's health, social and well-being needs. The support plan should outline how the person's outcomes are to be achieved and how best to support them, who's going to provide this support. and what resources and funding are needed to make it happen. The carer should be involved in the process, and the council can assist the carer to prepare a support plan to outline how the cared for needs are going to be addressed as well.
So the carer should have a lot of input into the care and support plan for the person they're caring for, because they're the ones who know them best and know precisely what the needs really are. So the next slide we want to talk about is what's called a carer blind assessment. Probably a phrase you've never heard of. What it basically means is that the local authority must disregard any support being provided by you, the unpaid carer, because they need to establish the total extent of the person's needs, including those that are currently met by you. So as a carer, you're probably meeting loads of the person you're caring for's needs in between what might be paid care calls. And all those things that you're doing for the person need to be recorded and identified as care needs. So sometimes I say to people, imagine the person you're caring for lived on their own and you never went in and gave them any help. Exactly what would they need help with? So that's often quite a good way of imagining what things they'd need. And a lot of it is probably stuff you do instinctively. So you will be a big part of the assessment of the person who you care for's needs, because you're the one who's got the most info about them. And it might be that the person doing the assessment might say, well, can they brush the teeth themselves? And you'll say, oh yeah, they can. But you maybe have to get the toothpaste out and the toothbrush and put the toothpaste on the toothbrush and put it in the hand, and then they can brush the teeth. So it really is about identifying every step of processes they're going through. You know, like you might say, oh yeah, they can get dressed themselves fine, but that might only be because you've prompted them and reminded them and got out the appropriate clothing and told them if they've got it inside out or back to front. So it's all those things that you probably do instinctively. You want to get those all captured in that assessment so they've got a real, true, full and accurate picture of what the needs are. And the other thing to say is don't feel pushed into saying that you can meet more of those needs than you're really able to. You don't have a responsibility to do any of it. So obviously you're willing to do it and able to do it, but if it's going to be detrimental to your well-being, you need to be honest and upfront about that, to get the message across of exactly how much you can provide and how much more care might need to be provided from outside services. Do you think that covers it, Rahana?
Yeah, and I just want to add that the benefit of having an assessment that is carer blind is should you fall ill or if you cannot no longer continue to provide the caring, the local authority do have a full picture of what the care needs of the individuals are. So having them on record is actually really quite useful. But like Carol says, you have to be able and willing to do the care that you want to do. Other than that, the rest can be an eligible need for the local authority to fulfil.
And I think we're on our last slide now, which is all about advocacy. And as we said at the beginning, Rahana and I are both advocates. We work for Carers Count, which is part of Cloverleaf Advocacy. People often don't have a clue what advocacy is, so I'll try and explain what we're about. So we're about helping people take more control of their own lives. We sort of help people to express their views and wishes and try and make sure that the voice is heard. Legally, under the Care Act, certain people have a legal right to an advocate, but most of the advocacy that Rahana and I do, there isn't a legal right. So we're really lucky that Kirklees, local authority do recognise the value of advocacy to people, and therefore they fund the advocacy that we provide for carers. So we try and make sure that your voice is heard. If you've got lots of professionals involved, which people often, when they're caring, there'll be health and medical and social care professionals involved, and who all maybe think they know best, but as an advocate, we think you know best. You know best about yourself and the person you're caring for. And if you feel as if your voice is getting lost a bit, and people aren't hearing what you're saying, then we can help act like a loudspeaker for your voice and make sure that you are listened to. So we can listen to your views and concerns. We'll help you explore your options and your rights. We won't point you in any particular direction because we believe that's your choice, but we'll make sure that you've got access to all the information you need to make your own informed choices and decisions. And we can help you contact people or contact them on your behalf if that is what will be helpful. And we can go to meetings and appointments with you. And if necessary, if you want to make any complaints, we can explore the best way of going about that and whether we need to go down a full formal complaint route or whether we can achieve the outcome that you want without having to do that. So what we won't do, we won't give you our personal opinion. We won't solve problems and make decisions for you, and we won't make judgments about you. We're here to just help you to make your own decisions and choices once you've got all the information you need to do that. So in a nutshell, that's what we're about. Do you want to add anything, Rahana?
Well, I think you've covered that really well, Carol. I mean, one of the things that we do as advocates is we often see advocacy as a journey as well, where initially we might be supporting the individual, but by the end of the advocacy journey, we're hoping that the carer will have the confidence to then speak up for themselves and put their views forward to professionals so that they can eventually self-advocate for themselves. And sometimes it takes longer, sometimes some people do get it and do build up the confidence. Once they find that they're being listened to, etc., it then gives them the confidence to then speak up for themselves. But yeah, if any of you guys ever feel that you need an advocate, there's always myself and Carol here to support you. All right then. Thank you. Thank you for listening to us, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.